Welcome, everyone. I'm Bharat from the vegan community, and I'm so excited for today's event and thrilled to introduce Ella Mages. She's a renowned wellness coach, founder of Sexy Fit Vegan, and a passionate advocate for plant-based lifestyle. So, with decades of experience in fitness and nutrition, she's here to inspire us with practical strategies to overcome cravings and make mindful and confident choices throughout the holiday season. Ella, over to you.
Thanks so much, Bharat. Hi, everyone. How are we doing today? Thanks for joining me. How are we doing? If you guys, anybody who's up for being on camera, it's so nice to see faces. Not a requirement, but it's great because this is going to be really interactive. This is not going to be me just talking at you for the next hour. I want to get a lot of back and forth, a lot of feedback, and I'm going to have a presentation we're going to get started with. But I'd first like to ask, what motivated you all to join today? And you can type it in the comments. I'd also just like one or two of you, if possible, to jump on and actually let me know in 30 seconds or less what motivated you to be here today. Is anyone up for coming on and sharing with the group?
Is this
Any
the topic? The
Uh-huh.
topic. And that's been an issue. It's been an issue, so see what you have to say.
Great to have you, Naomi. Anyone else? No one else is going to be courageous yet? Okay, maybe we'll get warmed up and we'll get started. I'm going to share my screen and we'll jump into the presentation. All righty, so we are talking about crushing cravings today. And like I just asked, I'm really curious what motivated you. So of course, yes, the topic, right? And would love to get to know you guys a little bit more as we go throughout this conversation. So first, in all my coaching programs, there's something really magical about moving and meditation. And this links back to what we'll be talking about today, but I want us just to get us all moving a little bit. This is how I start my group calls. And it's going to be just a moving breath with our body. So it's a reach out and then a pull in. And we're going to connect breath to that. So it's going to be breathing in and out of your nose. And we're going to do this slow at first. So an expansion with an inhale and exhale on the way in. Inhale on the way out. Exhale on the way in. We'll do this 5 more times. Big expansion and bring it back in. 2, exhale. 3, 2 more. 4 and 5. Good. And then just settle in. And if you'd like to, you can close your eyes. Otherwise, a soft gaze. Just settle into a stillness. Let's arrive. Let's be here now, as Ram Dass likes to say, for the next hour together. And let's really be here. And our to-do lists and our responsibilities, they're going to be there an hour from now. So if you could just sit and maybe connect with a little bit of gratitude, I'd like to encourage you to have gratitude for yourself for showing up. And one thing that I always like to mention is that by showing up for things like this, for having this motivation and prioritizing your own health and wellness, it's really, in a sense, a way of helping the world, because the healthier and more at peace we are internally, the more peaceful this plan is going to be. So thank you all for being here, for showing up for yourself, and an extension for showing up for the world. All right. So a little more sharing. If anybody's up for commenting in the comments, would love to hear a word or phrase that describes your relationship with food. And I'm going to see if I can see the comments here. A word or phrase that describes your relationship with food. With the chat box up here. So mine used to be complicated. Curious, I love that, Naomi. Life. I like that for us. Good. All right, we'll see if anybody else chimes in. What about your relationship with your body? A word or phrase that describes your relationship with your body. Comfort, that was probably for food, Yolanda. That's a good one. That tells me a little bit about why you might be here today. What about your relationship with your body? Curious again. Oh, moving through the world with curiosity, Naomi. I love this. Good. And anyone else wants to chime in, please do. What about a challenge when it comes to cravings? Anything on your mind right now? One particular challenge when it comes to cravings? Avoiding sweets at night. That is a big one for so many people. You are far from alone, Naomi. I'm sure there's other people on this chat that are, or on this group that feel the same way. Acting on the impulse. Yes, we're gonna cover that today. All right, great. All right, so here's what we are gonna cover today. Let's see if I can move this down a little bit. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story and how it can help you. We're going to talk about the reasons we crave food, and hint, only one reason is true hunger. I'm going to plant a seed, and we're going to talk about befriending your inner saboteur. We'll get to that. I'm going to give you a 5-step peace process for when a craving hits, and we're going to actually walk through that and as if you're having a craving right now so that you can learn how to apply this and take it with you after this workshop. Then you're going to actually create some commitments to yourself. And these are going to be called, we're going to call these process commitments, which might be a very different type of commitment than you've had before when it comes to food. I'm going to give you an invitation for a New Year's challenge so you can take what we've done today and some of the things we touch on today, because this is a very short workshop, and then get some more support in the new year. And that's a free, 100% free challenge. And then we'll do some Q&A. If anybody has any questions or needs some coaching, I'm here to help. That's what we're here for. All right, so let me just tell you my story in a nutshell. There has been so many shifts in my own life when it comes to my relationship with food. And it all started when I was just 7 years old. And I kind of made that connection of the meat on my plate with the animal that it was. And I stopped eating animals at the age of 7. By the time I turned 15, I had gone totally vegan for the animals. And I set out to really fulfill my life's purpose, which I saw as making this world a more compassionate place for all living beings. And I set out to spread the word because I thought surely if I just told people what was happening to animals behind the closed doors of factory farms, that they would immediately go vegan just like me. Well, of course, that isn't how it worked. And I realized that I needed to find a new way to kind of fulfill this life's purpose of my own. So I've been into sports since the age of 5, competitive swimming, gymnastics, volleyball, taekwondo, you name it, been there, done that. And in college, I got into weightlifting. And after college, got my I got certified as a personal trainer. And my new way of fulfilling my purpose was to become the physique, the shining example of the physique that most people wanted for themselves. And that really opened doors because people would come up to me and they would say, "Oh, how did you get to be so strong and lean?" And I would be able to share with them about how I was doing it, eating exclusively plants. And then they were more open to seeing how they might shift their relationship with food and eat more plants as well. And I would take them on as a client and help them out. But what I found, number one, was that I put a lot of pressure on myself. This was back in early 2000s, not many vegan bodybuilders out there. I was trying to meet the same macro counts, the same amounts of protein and carbohydrates as all my meat eating bodybuilding friends. And I was doing it as a vegan. And I developed a really unhealthy relationship with food. Do you all know about the bodybuilding industry and how unhealthy it is? Well, a lot of bodybuilders will go Monday through Saturday and be really restrictive with their food. And then on Sunday, it's a day-long binge on things like pizza and donuts. And although I did not eat pizza or donuts, I would also really restrict my food and be very strict. And then my willpower would run out and I would end up binging on things like nuts and cereal. And there was a lot of shame in these disorder type eating. Barat, do you have all the people entering the room? Okay. And so I also found with my clients that cravings were sending them back after they'd get in really good shape and they would be really, quote, good with their food. And then they would end up falling off the wagon, right? Anybody else can relate? You're on and off the wagon. So you're really good. And then something happens and you fall off the other side. And it's just this constant exhausting cycle of trying to be really good and then falling off the wagon. And I found it really frustrating, not only for myself, but for my clients. So I ended up going back to school, getting my master's degree in social work and entering my own healing journey of figuring out how I can heal my relationship with food and my body, which I did. And I'm going to share with you how I did that. My coaching then made a shift to also help people not only move towards plant-based eating, but also to really develop a healthy relationship with food. So there's no more wagons to fall off of, to get off that exhausting cycle. And so that's what I specialize in today. I founded the brand Sexy Fit Vegan back in 2013. And sexy is not an age. Sexy is an acronym. It stands for, we'll get to that in a little bit. But okay, let's just move forward because we got so much to cover. All right, so a lot of conflicting information out there about how to deal with cravings, right? And that's maybe why you're here, because I'm sure it's not the first time you've tried to kick the cravings. So there's kind of two main schools of thought. One is that you can't listen to your body because of the pleasure trap. Do you guys know about that? Salt, oil, sugar is the best way to go because our bodies are designed from being, back in our more primal days of just trying to survive. So our bodies do crave these really high calorie, dense, fattening, sugary foods. So one school is you can't listen to your body. You need to cut all of that stuff out. No such thing as moderation. We got to be salt, oil, sugar free. There's one. Then the other is no, the key is learning to listen to your body. I'm going to see if I can move this or change it so that it's not quite so distracting. Maybe that's better. All right. The key is learning to listen to your body and avoid diet plans. So intuitive eating is the answer because your body knows best. So very conflicting, right? Your body doesn't know what it needs. It's going to crave awful foods for you. And your body is really smart and it's designed to tell you what you need. Very confusing. So what's the answer? Well, it depends. And don't worry, it's not a very satisfying answer, but we're going to really, really make some progress here today. It depends largely on your relationship with food in your body and your emotional fitness and self-awareness. And so that's what we're going to really focus on today, the emotional fitness and self-awareness side of things. because most of us know kind of where we're going wrong, right? Do you guys kind of know where you're going off the plan, eating things that you know are not healthy, and yet you're doing it anyway? And that's pretty hard to deal with, right? Like, I know what I should be doing, and yet here I am not doing it. So there's some truths that we do, that I do want to go through real quick, because the depends answer doesn't give much satisfaction, right? But here are some pretty hard truths. Number one, understanding all the reasons that we eat and crave food is absolutely essential for training ourselves to eat in alignment with health, our fitness and physique goals, and our values. And notice my language here. We're working on a vocabulary shift. Everything we touch on again today, I'm going to dive deeper into in January, so I will let you know when that's happening here by the end. Truth, building a healthy relationship with food not only has to do with what we eat, it also has to do with how we eat. Creating commitments around how you eat can often be the most effective way to start. And again, we're going to create some of those commitments here today that you can take with you. All right, training our brain and body to crave healthy foods is possible. And unfortunately, it only happens when you choose healthy foods and largely avoid processed foods, addictive ingredients. But you can learn to coach yourself into healthy choices. And we're going to go through that self-coaching process today. We've been trained to eat according to diet plans and our schedules, ignoring our body's hunger and satiety signals, right? We go on what somebody tells us we should eat, and we go on what's going to fit into our schedule. So we tell our body, too bad you're hungry, now's not the time to eat, according to whatever schedule or diet plan. So we've got to retrain our brains and bodies in order to regain the ability to eat intuitively. This is part of the Conquer Your Cravings blueprint, which I will also tell you about. All right, so let's talk about why we eat. We're going to just cover this briefly today. And again, we'll cover this in more depth in the challenge in January. So why do we eat? Number one, there are four main reasons. Hunger, duh, right? My body is running low on fuel and needs nourishment. So we'll call this true hunger. Appetite. This is different than true hunger. This is a desire. So hunger is a need. Appetite is a desire. I have an insatiable desire for a certain taste or a texture or a flavor or a food or ingredient. You know, that's often sugar for a lot of us. That is often oily or fatty foods, fried foods, things like that, potato chips. All right, then we have comfort. This is an emotional desire. I want to eat to avoid or cope with negative emotions. That could be anxiety, it could be loneliness, stress, boredom. Anybody here a boredom eater? Like, you eat just because what else are you going to do? Or you feel tired, right? That can need some comfort. And then another emotional reason is a reward. And that's, I want to eat to treat myself for something positive or as a part of a celebration. This can often be reflective of when we were kids and what happened when we did something good and our parents said, here, you get a treat, you get a cookie, right? Like, this is our subconscious programming that we've carried with us and not really questioned it or worked to reprogram it. So this is all about reprogramming our automatic programming, our subconscious programming. All right, here's a question for you all. Do you usually know when you're truly hungry versus when you're craving food for those other three reasons? Do you usually know when you're truly hungry versus when you're eating for comfort or because you're tired or because you're rewarding yourselves? Mostly. Great, because that is absolutely a first step, is to start to really pay attention, right? And we're going to get to that. Thanks, Yolanda. All right, another question. This is important. When you give in to a craving for unhealthy food, do you choose and eat mindlessly, Or do you have an inner dialogue about it? So is it either I just reach for it and I just go for it, I don't even think about it, and afterwards I'm like, what did I just do? Or do you like go for it and but you stop and then you say, oh, but yeah, I deserve it. I was really, I didn't eat much yesterday. I went into the gym for an hour. So yeah, I can eat this. It's okay. Do you have that inner dialogue about it? Or do you just go for it and don't even think about it? Because this really kind of tells me where you're at. Most are I go for it and then feel guilty afterwards. Super common, Yolanda. Yes. Okay. All right, so I have a little story for you all. Anybody heard the story of Buddha and Mara? And you do not need to be Buddhist to appreciate this story. But this is in relation to that inner dialogue. So before Buddha was Buddha, he was a man named Siddhartha. And on his path to awakening or enlightenment, he was sitting under the Bodhi tree and meditating. And Mara, who's kind of the celestial king, also known as Lord of the Senses, would come and try to tempt him away from his meditation. So he would he would say things that would try to tempt him to get off the path to enlightenment. He'd even send beautiful women, and there were all sorts of things that he did to try to tempt Siddhartha. Well, it didn't work, and Siddhartha became Buddha, which simply means the enlightened one. We can all be a Buddha. And what's really interesting about the story and what makes it so relatable is that just because Buddha became Buddha, Mara didn't just disappear. Mara kept coming back. And even after his enlightenment, Mara kept showing up. Fear, cravings, self-doubt, it didn't go away. But the Buddha developed a remarkable way of responding. Whenever Mara would appear, the Buddha would calmly acknowledge him, saying, I see you, Mara. Then he would invite Mara to sit with him, offering tea, treating Mara as a guest. So why is this important? Well, have you ever heard the saying, what we resist persists? Right? So Buddha learned that instead of resisting, instead of treating Mara, which represents our shadow side, it represents that inner voice that talks us into doing things that are out of alignment with what we know to be healthy for us, what we know to be the choices that will serve us best, including what foods that we put in our bodies, right? But if we resist, then it persists. So instead, we go through a path, and before I even get into this, when I was doing a bunch of research, preparing to launch this new coaching program around cravings in 2025, I found somebody who is big time, New York Times bestseller. He's got coaching programs out there, helped thousands of people. And his inner voice, he calls his pig, which for somebody who is vegan and is on the board of Hogs and Kisses Farm Sanctuary and knows farm pigs very well, we've got very picky farm pigs at our sanctuary. One of our pigs won't even eat a peanut butter jelly sandwich, which I just cannot even understand. Anyway, he calls his inner voice, his pig, and berates his inner voice and creates an enemy out of that inner voice. We take a different approach with my coaching programs. We approach that inner voice, which is part of us, right? It's like almost like making an enemy with part of ourselves. What if that shadow side, we can call it, what if we learn to befriend that inner side? And in doing so, we really take away its power. So we all have that Mara within us. In my coaching program, we even get to name that inner voice. It's a self-sabotaging voice that tempts us away from our goals, to act out of alignment with what's important to us. But instead of fighting with the voice or pretending it doesn't exist, we take a cue from Buddha. We acknowledge and befriend this part of ourselves, and in doing so, we disarm its power. So with that said, do you all have a piece of paper, or if you want to type on your computers digitally? Because this will be great. And you can just type in the chat as well. That would be even even more helpful for you to see each other's voices. I understand that for some of us, these cravings, and it did for me for a long time, it's a source of shame giving into those cravings. And there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you for giving into these cravings. There's so many reasons. And if we approach it with curiosity and compassion, then we get to shift how we see things and start to make some new choices. And the peace process I designed to do that exactly. And if you all did you all download the companion guide? It is the peace process. So if you haven't done that yet, don't do it now. You don't need to, because we're going to cover it here. But if you go to start.sexyfitvegan.com when we're finished, you can get a download of this peace process, as well as the 4 reasons that we eat. So you can have it with you to practice this afterwards. So I want you to think back to a recent craving that you had. If you can't recall a specific craving, think of something that you crave often and the circumstances that surround that craving. For example, I get home from work and all I want is Oreo cookies, and I go for the cabinet and that's what I want. It's usually an exhausting day. So just as an example. So I really want you to take a moment here to think back to a recent craving, or kind of create in your mind the circumstances that often occur when you have a craving. So the P is for pause. In my program, we call this the power pause, because it is one of the most powerful tools that you can start to master. Now, none of this is a quick fix, you guys. This isn't I'm going to fix it tomorrow. This is an ongoing process that we get to take on for the rest of our lives. So sooner we can see this as an ongoing process that we get to explore, that we get to kind of approach like a game, then it just becomes more interesting. Life becomes more interesting. So think of this as something that you're going to adopt and use for the rest of your life. So P is pause. That means before you go for that cookie or potato chip or whatever it is, right? Yolanda, you said usually it's mindless and you remember after. This step is essential, right? It's that pause to take a few deep breaths, to step into the role of the observer, observing that inner voice, observing your thoughts and your emotions, because the truth is we all have power over our thoughts. Not to stop thoughts from coming in, but to acknowledge the thoughts that come in and then to create new thoughts. This is the self-coaching process that I take clients through. So you step into that role of the observer and you approach yourself, your thoughts, your emotions, and your body with curiosity and compassion. And that's a mantra that I use. I approach myself and my body with curiosity and compassion. Some of you already have that curiosity piece, which is awesome, Naomi. So take a moment right now. Imagine yourself in that situation with that craving. And before you grab that food, take a few deep breaths right here, right now. We're going to practice this like in real time. And a hint about the breath. When we do a 1 to 2 count, inhale to exhale. So let's say a 2 count breath in and a 4 count breath out. We start to switch from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system. So often we're in that kind of fight or flight, the sympathetic nervous system, right? And we're acting on impulse. And our bodies are saying, I'm hungry and I'm going to starve to death if I don't eat something right now. This is our primal brain stepping in here, right? But we're not starving, right? So switching, so a 4 count in, 8 counts out. Even better if we can get there. We start to work ourselves up. So let's do a 2 count breath in and a 4 count breath out through the nose. And you can start to feel the difference, like after just 2 breaths, right? And we step into that role. Observe your thoughts. Think about what thoughts are running through your head then. And they might not be conscious thoughts. Maybe it's oh, I'm so frustrated. I deserve a cookie, right? Think about that. In my programming, we actually write these things down and then we create responses to start to master that conversation. All right, so after the pause, the E is evaluate. So think about the specific food you're craving and describe it in detail, including the quantity. I won't try to force you guys to comment, but any comments about this in the chat, if not, write it down on a piece of paper. Think about the specific food you're craving, describe it in detail, and then that's including the quantity. What will satisfy me? Is it one cookie? Am I craving 2 cookies or 3 or 4? Is it the crunch of the potato chip that I really like, that saltiness on my tongue? Really, really take a moment to think about that food, what it is that you're craving, why you want to eat that food. Is it just because that's what you do after you get home from work? Is it because you need that comfort? Is it really uncomfortable to feel exhausted or frustrated? Or is it just this insatiable desire? Is it maybe related to a food addiction, whether that be sugar for a lot of us, or the salt, or is it a reward? So think about that. The A is anticipate. So the next step is predicting how you'll feel after indulging. So that guilt, right, that you mentioned, I think it was Yolanda, right? Think about how you'll feel afterwards. This is not to shame yourself into any decisions, but this is all about treating yourself and your body with respect, with compassion, right? And aligning your actions with what you really want for yourself in your life, in your body, in your health. So imagine the experience of what you're gonna feel 5 minutes later, an hour, or a few hours later. What about the following day? So consider both the positive and negative consequences. So I'll tell you a story. So I cut out refined sugar many, many years ago. I don't crave it anymore, which is a fabulous feeling. I've got salty is still a thing for me. But the other weekend, I was at my niece's birthday party, Coco. She was turning 6 years old. And they had made a big vegan chocolate cake. It was vegan. And it had like icing and sprinkles on top and all of that stuff, right? And Coco looked at me and was like, "Aren't you going to have a piece of cake?" And I went through this process. And can you imagine what my decision was? I said, yeah, slice me a small piece of that cake. And so this does not always mean you're going to choose the perfectly healthy option. I made that choice consciously because I wanted to participate in this family event. And it was worth it to me. The positive, consequence was to participate and being a part of this celebration with her in that way. It wasn't right or wrong. It just is what I decided. I knew the negative consequences. I knew my tummy wasn't going to feel great. I knew I wasn't going to love how my body felt. And that was my choice that day. So I'm just giving that example that it doesn't always mean that you're going to make the perfectly healthy decision, though most of the time you probably will. All right, so C is choose. You're going to create new empowering thoughts. That's that discussion I was telling you about that will guide you towards a conscious choice about what, if anything, you will eat. So you ask yourself some questions. This is where it's you and Mara, right? What would I choose if I truly loved myself and my body? So this is acting out of compassion for yourself. Eating really is an act of self-care. Right? Eating is meant to nourish and fuel our body. So what is an alignment with nourishing and fueling my body? What is an alignment with being active and healthy into old age? So then you come up with an action plan that addresses your true needs and is aligned with your health and fitness goals, in line with self-love, in line with compassion. And if your body needs nourishment and fuel, the choice is pretty obvious, right? If your craving is rooted in emotion or addiction, what might you do instead that would also spark joy or peace, that would also help you? Now, one of the things that we talk about is being really having trouble dealing with negative emotions, right? Stress, boredom, anxiety. What if, and this is where meditation really comes in, what if you could learn to sit in that craving without actually acting on it? Right? What if you could notice it? It's like having an itch, right? Nothing's going to happen if we don't scratch that itch. And we go for it anyway, right? What if we could be aware of the itch and learn not to scratch it? It eventually goes away. And the last is executing, putting your plan into action. Whatever choice you make, you embrace your decision. So if it is eating, whatever you choose to eat mindfully. If it's not eating, celebrate that decision, be fully present in whatever activity you've chosen. Does that make sense? All right. So let's work on creating some commitments. So remember I talked about process commitments versus food commitments? So instead of the food restriction related commitments, I'd like to send you home with commitments that are aligned with a deeper why. So that means being beyond physique related. So a lot of people, I want to lose weight. Great. And let's go a little deeper than that. Research has shown that and from my own experience with hundreds of clients, especially back in my personal training days, those commitments get kept temporarily. So we go deeper when we do these commitments. So one of the most powerful tools for building a healthy relationship with food is through mindful eating. How many of you kind of rush through your meals? How many can you say, I truly chew each food to a bite, or chew each bite of food to a paste before swallowing? Not many. Yeah. It's a game changer, you guys. So that's just one mindful eating technique. But one of the most powerful tools for developing that healthy relationship with food and for gaining the ability to listen to your hunger and satiety signals and avoid overeating is through mindful eating. So I'm going to give you some mindful eating related commitment examples. And if you have any questions about these, let me know. So what I'm talking about here, for example, is putting down your fork between each bite. Has anyone tried this? And let me tell you, I've had clients that we changed nothing about what they eat. And in 1 month, I've had a client lose 10 pounds. Not because they changed what they ate, but because they changed how they ate. And it was through mindful eating. So putting down your fork between each bite, that's one example. How about eating dinner undistracted, right? So it is very hard to shift how you eat if you're eating in front of a screen, the TV, a computer, when you're not fully present with your food. So part of mindful eating, and I'm not saying you need to do this every time and for the rest of your life, but as you're developing these new habits, they can't be done when you're distracted. So what I recommend, we're going to talk about this. So the challenge, Cravings Cure Challenge is coming up on January 13th. It's a 4-day challenge. And so what I'd love you guys to do is think about for the next month. So you got 4 weeks. And if you can just take one commitment with you for the next 4 weeks till we meet again in the challenge, this is going to be hugely transformational. And it seems so little, and I promise you it's not. So eating dinner undistracted, not just undistracted, but really being present with the food. And you notice the colors and the flavors and how the food feels in your mouth. And when you do that, and when you put down the fork in between each bite, and when you chew each bite to a paste, then you're also slowing down tremendously, and you can start to pay attention when you get to that point of being about 80% full, because 20 minutes later, you're usually 100% full, rather than eating until you're 100% full, and then 20 minutes later, anyone relate? 20 minutes later, you're like, yeah, I'm over full, right? I could have eaten 20% less, and I'd probably be a much happier person right now. So we can't do that if we're eating distracted. We can't do that if we're eating quickly. So when I'm talking about chewing, and this sounds gross, right? But I remember the day that I made the commitment to chew each bite to a paste. And what I said is, I'm going to make a smoothie in my mouth. That sounds gross, doesn't it? Right? I'm going to make a smoothie in my mouth. Gross. Okay. But I'm going to do it anyway. I remember that day because I was doing a book signing on the Holistic Holiday at Sea Cruise. Anyone ever been on that cruise? It's a great cruise. And Dr. Clapper, yes, Dr. Clapper was up there giving a talk, and he talked about the importance of chewing each bite to a paste, about how our pre-digestion happens through that chewing process. We have enzymes in our saliva. It starts to break down the food. It makes digestion so much easier, so much better, and it slows us down tremendously. And I remember, because before that, I was eating very healthy, but I still had a lot of bloating after meals. And it was really bothersome. I thought there might be something wrong with my organs, my internal organs, my digestive tract. It went away completely, immediately, when I started chewing my food 25 to 30 times. So whether that means I need to count my chews, or you make a smoothie in your mouth, or whatever you want to say to yourself, that's another process-related, mindful eating-related commitment. What about a gratitude pause before eating each meal or snack? So it's that pause, right, that we talked about earlier, and taking a moment to connect with gratitude. Gratitude is magic. Moving's magic. Meditation's magic. Gratitude's magic. Right? So these are a few examples. There's many more, and I can help any of you come up with what might be a good commitment to you. And so I want you to choose one process-related commitment that you can stick with until January 13th. The other thing I want you to practice between now and January 13th is that peace process. Download it, print it out, take it with you, and practice doing that before you eat each meal. Anyone have a process commitment that they would like to share, what you might commit to? It helps to share. Accountability. Not eating at your desk, Marie. Very, very good. Eating undistracted. Awesome. When I'm not, you have 30-minute lunch. Yes. So even Yolanda, even when one of the things that I thought, especially when I make my big salads, which I'm a salad for breakfast kind of person. So I like literally have salad for breakfast, but it's huge, right? I'm like, if I'm going to eat this mindfully, I'm going to be sitting here for like 90 minutes. This is going to be ridiculous, right? So anyway, sometimes, yes, we might not be able to eat slow, and we can chew really fast and still get that smoothie in our mouth. So Yolanda, even if you can't take a longer time period, definitely you could still work on chewing, even if it's fast, still chewing to a pace. Not eating at your desk, yes, eating undistracted, gratitude before eating. Naomi, I love that. Yeah, and it's that breath, like it could be the breathing, right? I'm going to take 3 deep breaths, in for 4, out for 8, before I eat every time, right? And so that allows us the opportunity, that gives us that chance to evaluate what we're eating too. If this is going on a impulse, snack, then this is going to help you with that as well. So great. So speaking of this challenge, Cravings Cure Challenge, I want to tell you all about that. And then really, this is about taking the peace process and your process commitment with you for the next month, especially as you move through the rest of these holidays, right? Until we get to this challenge. And this is a deeper dive. We go into the biology and the psychology of cravings much deeper than we did today. We have a daily challenge with exercises to help you discover your blind spots and actionable tools to transform how you eat and what you eat. Plus, there's some opportunities for hot seat coaching and Q&A and all of that good stuff. So where to get that is challenge.sexyfitvegan.com. You can also scan this QR code. That'll take you there. It's 100% free. There is an upgrade if you want some more personalized attention, but the challenge itself is free. Also, just wanted to let you guys know I have a weekly Soul Aligned Sunday newsletter, sexyfitvegan.com/newsletter. Really, really fun read that I want to invite you. It's not another promotional type of email. This is really sharing about discoveries. I just got back from 3 weeks in Guatemala getting my yoga teacher certification. I share lessons learned. I just had Ayurvedic medicine consultation, and I share, you get to know me and my dog. Did you guys see my dog? My new rescue dog. That's Fiona. So just got her from the Humane Society about 6 months ago. She's pumped full of anxiety outside the home, but inside she's gotten to be quite comfortable. So share about the dog food that I feed her, the vegan dog food, just things that I'm discovering in my life that I think will be helpful, that I like to share with you all. And it's fun. It's fun. All right. So I'm leaving room. You guys aren't the most sharing group I've ever had, but some of you are sharing. So would anybody like, and I'm gonna jump off. What do I got? Do I have anything else here? Nope, that's all. There's my email. If you guys have any questions about what you learned today, I answer all of them myself, ella@sexyfitvegan.com. And then I'm gonna take off this, stop sharing and see if you guys have any questions or have a specific situation that you would like me to help you with. We've got about 10 minutes. Would any how to stay on track when your spouse isn't on board? That's a big one. Yolanda, do you want to jump on? Do you want to chat? I mean, I can just talk about it, but you're welcome to. And can they unmute themselves, Bharat?
Yeah, they can.
Let me know if you want to pop on and chat about it, or you want me to just talk. I'll start talking if you want to hop on, Yolanda, no pressure. I'm not in a quiet place. Got it. Okay. And Yolanda, is your spouse not on board the healthy eating thing, the vegan thing, what is your spouse not on board, he or she? Or they? Not on board vegan and too many sweets. Yeah. So, and that's tough, right? So some of the things that would be ideal is like, okay, if I don't want to eat it, I'm not going to keep it in the house, at least at first, while we're learning to be able to talk. And I'll tell you a quick story. In my disordered eating days back in my 20s, I'm 44 now, just to let you know, reference. So 20 years ago, when I had a granola addiction. So it was a point, and my friend gave me an intervention. I would stash granola in the trunk of my car and only take in, I'm not even lying here, I would only take in how much granola that I wanted to eat that day. That's how I felt like I did not have the willpower. That's how I didn't have the willpower to only have one small bowl of granola. It was pretty healthy granola, but regardless, right? So ideally, and now my mom's living with me, and she loves granola. She's got granola. I've got peanut butter, all the things that I used to really have trouble with. Now it can be in the house, and I don't have a problem with it. And yes, ideally, we just don't keep it in the house while we're learning these tools and building this healthy relationship with food so that we can make these conscious choices. So this is number one. Sometimes there's a conversation that we can have. Maybe we haven't shared with our spouse just how much we are struggling, right? And it depends on your relationship. And that's why it's tough for me to give you. So, but maybe some of these things, one of them will resonate with you or somebody else. Right? Sometimes it's really hard to have these conversations when we're trying to be healthy. And maybe sometimes it's great to have a conversation to share with our spouse, look, I'm feeling really out of control when it comes with sweets. And can we discuss how we might shift what's in the house for this amount of time, right? Giving a time frame can help. Can we talk about this? Number one. Number two, positioning things in the refrigerator or in the cabinets so that your healthy options stare you in the face first, right? So positioning things so the healthy things are first, and you put in the cabinets, the things that you don't want to see, put them out of sight at least, right? If we can't have them out of the house. Having that conversation and then practicing these tools. I'm telling you that it is this power we have over our thoughts. We have the power to coach ourselves. It's tough at first, you guys. This is, like I said, it's not a quick fix, but this is a powerful fix that can stick with you the rest of your life. So one of my clients thought of pause jewelry. So it's that first thing of, and you had talked about, Yolanda, like not being able to get into that mindful place before grabbing the food and feeling guilty about it later. So for you, it's creating an opportunity to remember to pause. So my one client has a pause ring that she bought specifically with that intention. So she could look down as she was grabbing, she'd put it on her right hand and see her pause jewelry and say, the peace process. Let me go through the peace process. Yolanda said, I've been plant-based since October 2019. Lately, it's difficult to stay focused. And Yolanda, what's your motivation? What do you see as your motivation, your reason, your why for being plant-based and maybe whole food plant-based? That would be my next question. And while she's answering that, does anybody else have any questions or have a specific situation or circumstances that you'd like some coaching on? One other tool that we use in my coaching programs is movement as a practice for mindfulness. And yoga is one of those great forms of movement that helps us practice mindfulness tools, practice being present, that we can practice on the mat and then take off the mat when we eat. So yoga is a great tool. My why was not getting older and being fat, sick, or medicated in my older years. Great why, great why. And Yolanda, sometimes it's challenging to have such a meaningful why, right? But to stay connected to that why when you're making a decision about being something happening in the future, right? So there's that piece of continuing to connect with that why, in the moment when you're actually reaching for the food that you know is not in alignment. This is all about alignment. It's aligning our actions with those values, with that why, with that goal, and maybe going even deeper with that why. So why do you want those things? Is there, do you have children or grandchildren that you want to play with when you're older? Is there some other meaning that you can bring into that? Another thing that, some people will talk about is kind of filling a void. Like, what void am I filling? For me, I think there was that piece of like, I'm really here to make a difference in the world. And here I am, a personal trainer. I don't feel like I'm making a difference. And there was some depression going on. There was some anxiety. There was insomnia that I was dealing with. So healing ourselves emotionally can be really important too. I'm retiring in 4 months and I have to embrace a new normal. That's a big life circumstances, right? Is there anxiety around that? And this is where the mantra that I'd love you to take with you, Yolanda, I approach myself with curiosity and compassion. Can you live in that space? Can you wake up in the morning and start with a meditation, even if it's a 5-minute meditation? Today, I approach myself with curiosity and compassion. I approach my thoughts, my emotions, my actions with curiosity and compassion. It's not sexy, but it's a game changer. Yes, Naomi.
Hi, Yolanda and I think, are going to talk after this program because we seem to have a lot of similar kinds of issues. And so I was having earphones in when I first got on the phone because on the call because my husband was here, but he has left. So I took them off. One of the things that I've had to come to grips with is not changing him. He will not do this, even though he has numerous health problems. And he's a smart guy, and he knows what the scoop is. He still wants to eat how he wants. I have to cook it for him. He can't cook. I mean, he's in his 80s now. He's not going to learn how to cook. He can make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. He can open up a can of soup, and he can make reservations. That's about the extent of it. So I have to cook things that I don't eat for him, and I've been able to kind of do that. And with the sweets, it really gets to me because he wants me to bake. When our children come over, they expect, baked, and not the vegan baked, not the stuff with the flax egg and all that. They won't eat it. So I want them to come over, obviously, but that's one of my challenges. And I kind of wax and wane with, okay, I'm not even going to try and do this with him. And sometimes I have to make 2 meals, and then I do. And so the only thing that we really have is the moment. We don't have 5 minutes ago, and we don't have 5 minutes from now. We just have what we have right now. And that's where we have to make the decisions. And that sometimes it's really challenging for me. The other thing that I have found helpful is I started a support group, I don't know, 7 years ago or so when I first did this, because I had no support from my family. Nobody wanted to do this with me. And so the library gave me a free room, and we've built up, and I have like over 200 people now on my mailing list. And we meet monthly. And so that has been very helpful. And what I've also found is that many of the women in particular have the same issue with their spouses, their partners or husbands or whatever, that their husbands don't want to have anything to do with this. And they are coming to the meetings to get their own support.
Thank you so much for creating that space for so many people, Naomi. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of groups around the country and around the world that, they're free, and you can go and then you meet like-minded people. And, it's kind of okay. Wonderful. So it's a challenge. It is a challenge.
And I really appreciate your in the moment. Like we get this moment, we get this moment, and we get this moment. Wonderful. Thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you all. No more questions. We're going to wrap it up. It was so wonderful to spend the hour with you all. I hope to see you in the challenge in January as well.
Well, thank you for doing this.
You're so welcome. Bye, everyone.